Well, hello and welcome to the Internal Mobility Podcast, where we explore all of the ways for you to reach your potential here at Randstad while also making this giant company a little easier to know and understand. Today, our guest is Marc-Etienne, Julien, and for those of us that don't have lovely French accents, he also goes by Mej, M-E-J, his initials. Welcome, Mej.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to be here. And hi,
Thank
everyone.
you so much for being here. You are a walking internal mobility story, 22 years with the company, and I know you didn't start as a CEO. So tell us your story, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm just a year behind you, actually. So I started in the business in 2001 in Randstad, Canada, as a staffing consultant. When I joined, the Canadian organization was very small. Linda Galipeau, back in the days, had opened the Canadian operation 4 years prior to me joining. So I was employee number 55 or 60. So a relatively small team, 4 or 5 locations when I joined. It was a pleasure. So I worked as a staffing consultant for about a year or so. I then, back in the days, we had a very much SME focused strategy. So big accounts were not necessarily part of our growth plan. I loved sales. So I was offered the opportunity to be the first dedicated salesperson, because back in the days, we only did 360 and focused on the larger, but not too large, but the larger accounts. So that was the restriction I had, because at the time, we did not want to be dependent too much on bigger accounts, as we were so early stage in our growth. I did that for a year or so and then had my first opportunity at management. So I took over a branch in Montreal as my first managerial opportunity. Back in the days, I was right out of university. So Randstad it still is my first real job as a full-time employee. I had the pleasure to be leader of a branch. I had a team of 6 people back in the days. We were going through a challenging period, so we did a great turnaround. And then from there, we opened up 2-3 locations in the surroundings, so additional branches. I had the pleasure after that, we had young kids back in the days, to move closer to my family and then open up the region of Quebec City. So from there, we went from 4 employees and about 4 offices in 4 years. So that was kind of a nice growth period. In 2008, actually, Randstad did a significant acquisition with Videor. And Linda, who was our Canadian leader back in the days, has moved to the US. So that created a big reshuffle into the organization. I ended up running a part of our staffing operation back then, together with a few of my colleagues. And over time, over the years, I had the opportunity to become the leader for the Canadian staffing organization. I started the Randstad in-house service model here in Canada. I ended up taking over our professional division. And then a little over 7 years ago, I had the pleasure to be appointed as the Canadian CEO. So I ran all of our service lines here in Canada. Did that for about 7 years, the last 2 years of which I had the pleasure to work on global assignments. So Canada is considered to be a best practice with PERM. We have about 35-40% of our GP coming from PERM. So I led the global PERM initiative to support Randstad becoming number 1, not just in temp staffing, but also in PERM staffing. We still have some ways to go, but we made some good progress. And I was also involved on a part-time basis with the start of the global talent strategy. For the last year, I was 100% dedicated to the global team as a member of the ELT, and I was responsible for the global talent strategy. And now, since a few weeks, I had the pleasure to be back in the business of course, working with that fantastic North American leadership team meeting to really help bring Randstad to market leadership position in North America as well. So that's my short story.
Amazing. I'm wondering, when you started as a staffing consultant, did you ever dream of being a global CEO? Like, was that ever in your head?
Well, I'm not the global CEO.
Well, you're a CEO in a global organization. Yeah. It's a pretty big deal.
It's a pretty big deal, absolutely. I've always been passionate about business, and I've always wanted to have impact, but also build great leadership teams. So it was an aspiration for me to move into leadership. But no, Chris, I never thought I could make it. I could make it there. So it's been. I've been very grateful for all of the opportunities that Randstad has trusted me with. And yeah, it's been a very fun career journey so far.
Awesome. Well, what is your vision for internal mobility in North America now that you're here leading us? What do you want for our people with regards to internal mobility?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, and I'm a big, of course, I having moved myself throughout the organization, I'm a big advocate for internal mobility. In my opinion, it's the best win-win we can potentially ever had. Randstad is a large organization. We have multiple specialties. We have multiple service models as well. And I believe we provide a great career opportunity for all individuals that are part of the Randstad organization. And over time, if ever people are looking for the next step in their career, either if they want to progress into leadership, or if they're not so interested in leadership, but they want to foster a different skill set, we offer the opportunity to do both, essentially. So if ever you're at a cornerstone in your career and you're looking at doing something that's going to get you out of your comfort zone again, I'm a big advocate of making sure that people exhaust every possible option available within the organization, of course, before considering going outside of the organization, because we do have a lot to offer. I think nowadays it's even better because we, of course, learn how to work even in an even more remote fashion with COVID, obviously. So it makes it geographical is far less of a barrier to internal career mobility, as most people don't necessarily have to move to essentially pick up a new career challenge. So I think it's good for all of us to take advantage of that. I think it's good for the organization to retain great talent. And it's also a mission of ours, and it's always been, to fill most of our leadership position from within the organization. So I think it's a great win-win opportunity for everyone. And I highly encourage everyone to look at all internal opportunity and every couple of years, see what's happening, what's available, and yeah, make sure you stay up to date on what are the development. And I hope that over time, there's going to be more and more of those opportunities with our growth strategy. We're going to focus a lot on specialization. So that will bring opportunity for people to develop new skills, new competencies. But we also want to evolve some of our service model, which will also create new leadership or expert opportunities as well.
Yeah. Now, in terms of us preparing for specialization over the last year, and really reorganizing ourselves to be who we are becoming now in terms of the world's largest and most specialized talent company, there's been a lot of disruption along the way. And there could be somebody that's listening to us right now that sees all the potential, but is a little insecure because there has been a lot of change here recently. What do you want that person to know?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris, and thanks for asking that question. I can only recognize the amount of change that we went through last year. Right? The market wasn't in our favor. Some parts of our business have gone or are going through the realignment of what that specialization model is in terms of org structure. And we're also adapting some of our ways of working within those specialties, as leveraging, as an example, the Randstad at Work opportunity we have in our M&L office. So it does bring a lot of change. And with change comes sometimes insecurity, and that's absolutely understandable. So first, that person should know that he or she is not alone and is part of a big organization, and an organization that aspires to be a great employer. And we're not perfect, obviously. We have some work to do in terms of communication, in terms of development for our own leadership, and also in terms of support. So it's important that that person knows that we're trying to our best to also become better at how we manage change as an organization. I think it's important for that person to take a little bit of time also and make sure that he or she understands the overall company strategy. So as much as in the short term, sometimes the impact of it might not be clear, if you do understand the direction that we are going as an organization, it helps sometimes relating to some of the changes that are happening, but also trying to put them into perspective with why we're doing these changes, and how you can actually participate to what the company is trying to achieve. And sometimes you have to think about it at the next level to help really connect the dots together. We as a leadership team need to do probably a better job, of course, at communicating that, and we have a plan for that throughout the year. But there are also resources you can use. We have the Capitals Market Day recently, where the overall executive leadership team shared the global strategy with the financial community. So that is actually possible to watch. And that gives a lot of insight in terms of what our global positioning is and why we're making the decisions that we're making. You can talk to your leaders about it and ask a lot of questions. And my last piece of advice would be to be a little bit patient. So sometimes these changes, we have a very ambitious aspiration. Sometimes change is difficult. It's also a bit messy in the process. So we have to stay focused in the short term, making sure that we bring all of us the best contribution to the organization in those challenging times, and keep the faith that those changes will bring us to where we want to be as the market leader in North America. And also, obviously, reach out to a colleague, reach out to your leader, reach out to HR if you do need support, or if you do need a ear to talk to. And it's important not to stay alone, essentially, if we feel a bit insecure by those changes, but make sure that you leverage the fact that you work for a company that cares, and that you take advantage of that.
Very sage advice. Do not be quietly curious or insecure. I love that. You're not alone. Ask. Don't hold it in. Ask. There's plenty of information here. And I mean, 23 years for me, 22 for you. We've been through a lot of seasons. Can you imagine if we'd allowed insecurity at any point, like to get us off track?
Exactly.
We wouldn't be here today building something beautiful.
Exactly. Absolutely. And sometimes offense is your best defense strategy. So inform yourself, know what the game plan is, and then trying to be ahead of the curve, but also at your best. And that's how that's the kind of people that have a positive influence, even if we do have headwind, are the people that really stand out and be a leader in helping us to maneuver through those more challenging times.
Yes, exactly. One more question before you go. What does it mean for you to be a talent partner? Have you come across any good talent partner stories in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm very passionate, obviously, about that topic, Chris, having been involved at the global level with the overall talent strategy. To me, being a talent partner means that we're going to be more than a transactional partner when people are at the moment that people are looking for a job. The world of work is becoming more complex. There's new ways that people can work. The pace at which people have to learn new skill is going to accelerate. And that makes it more challenging for people to maneuver and make important decisions that will impact their career. And we really want Randstad to be the partner that's going to help them maneuver that more complex world of work. And we're going to be in an era of ongoing learning. Gone are the days where you can go to school, learn a skill, and then, build a whole career for your whole life, on that skill. So now people will have to be confident about their ability to learn new skills, but also the pace of change affecting people's job will only increase over time, right? By the phenomenon that we all know with AI and with the aging of population and so on, with automation in general. So we really want to make sure that Randstad is there to support them at moments where, at impactful moments when they're looking for a job, but we also advise them on the best way to stay relevant in the marketplace. We can provide them the resources that they're looking for and a little bit of help along the way. So we want to build more sustainable relationship with our talent, and obviously add value not just to their job search at the moment in time, but through their overall career evolution. And one of my cool story that I've bumped into recently. The first time I showed up in Atlanta, I think it was on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday midweek. It was pretty quiet that day, so I had the time to walk around and talk to some of our colleagues and get to know them a little bit. And one of them started to tell me her life story with Randstad. And she, at a moment that was a little bit difficult for her as a single mom in her life, was looking for a career opportunity. She knocked on our door. We placed her on an assignment that helped her, of course, fulfill some of her and her family's needs. She ended up being very passionate about the industry in which we placed her. She went back to school, got some learning in that industry. It was in the real estate industry. And then now today, she's on a permanent employment at one of our partner, and she has Randstad as her customer. So she's actually now servicing Randstad and helping us with our real estate strategy. And I felt that was a beautiful story. So I could not probably tell that story as best as she will. So, but I encourage you to talk to Stacy if you have questions about her career, because I was quite touched by the impact we had, but also how she's now paying it forward by helping us really build a good workplace strategy for all of our internal employees. So this is just one of so many stories. And I think it's a good reminder, not to forget the impact we can have on people's life. It's not just about the business, but it's also about doing the right things.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being so generous with your time and being here today.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for the invite. Bye, everyone.